It's finally here. This is the new LUMIX GH7 video-centric hybrid camera from Panasonic. In this video, I'll compare it not to the previous model GH6, but to the previous GH5 that's been the workhorse for so many creators and professionals for many years, and a lot of people are still using today. I'll go over the 8 reasons why I decided it was time to upgrade, and hopefully help you decide if it's something that might be right for you too. Honestly, the 7th and 8th reasons are pretty niche, so I'd be really curious to know if anyone else has these use cases. Let me know in the comments. First, let's unbox it. Something I noticed that is missing from the GH7 box that came with both the GH5 and the GH6 is this cable clamp that you can screw into the side of the camera here. This allows you to lock the cables in place so that they don't accidentally pull out during the middle of a shoot. I guess they figure that a lot of people today, especially content creators, are putting their cameras in cages, and you probably can't attach this anyway, so you weren't using. I guess they just decided to leave that out. I'm primarily a solo video creator. I usually direct, shoot, and edit my own videos, and most of my work has been in corporate videos, documentaries, and interviews. More recently, I've been doing a lot of cooking videos for clients and for my wife's online school here in this studio, as well as some travel videos. I bought all of this equipment with my own money, and this is not a sponsored video, so all the opinions are my own as an independent video creator. Okay, so on to the comparison. For me as a solo shooter, the headline GH7 feature is its phase detect autofocus. The older GH5 relies on contrast detect autofocus, which Panasonic stuck with until very recently. For still photos, I think that contrast detect isn't bad, and the GH7 was, and still is, a very capable camera. But the reliance on contrast detect meant that the GH5 would constantly need to hunt a little bit to maintain proper focus on your subject. For video, this was a problem because even if your subject would generally appear to stay in focus, the background would often have this weird pulsing effect as the camera continually hunted for the right focus point. Even the GH6, which I had for a couple of years, suffered from this problem, which is why I eventually sold it. I found this pulsing to be very annoying, and it severely limited the situations where I could confidently use the camera. And honestly, my eyesight isn't what it used to be, and good autofocus is really nice to have. So, thank you Panasonic for finally adopting phase detect autofocus. This is the #1 reason why I picked up the GH7. Micro Four Thirds has always suffered a bit when it comes to low light performance. It's just a fact that the smaller, high resolution sensor doesn't capture as much light per pixel as a larger sensor. The GH7 has greater dynamic range than the GH5 and should have better low light performance as well. So the improved performance of the GH7 sensor should give an overall better picture than the GH5. On paper, the GH7 is only marginally larger than the GH5, but I think it feels a lot larger, although still very comfortable to hold. The chunkiness of the GH7 is largely due to the active cooling fan that they built into it, along with the tilt-out and flip-open monitor versus the flip-only monitor on the GH5. This is great if you need to attach cables to the side of the camera like I often do in the studio, and the tilt function lets the monitor clear the cables and gives the monitor better range of movement to angle it how you like. I also like the tilt function because it makes it easier to hold for low angle shooting, whereas the GH5, the screen is sticking out on the side and I find that it can get in the way of my left hand while holding the camera. Full V-Log is also quite important since I think it will better match my newer Lumix cameras. I paid for the V-Log upgrade on the GH5, but it's still the light version of Panasonic's log format. Matching colors between the GH5 and full non-light V-Log cameras like the full-frame S5 Mark II that I shoot with has always been a bit challenging, and I could never get the images to match as well as I wanted. I'm eager to find out if the full V-Log profile on the GH7 makes color matching with my other Lumix cameras easier. And I'll have to do a follow-up video after I get to use the GH7 in my studio for a little while. 32-bit float audio is another big feature I'm looking forward to using. To get 32-bit float audio on the GH7, you need to purchase this XLR2 adapter that they sell separately. Without it, the GH7 records in more typical 24-bit audio. And with 24-bit audio recording, it's important to set your recording level properly to get a clear and strong signal, but you don't want to set the level too high because if the sound or the person you're recording suddenly gets louder, you can end up with clipped and distorted sound. But with 32-bit float, you can capture very loud sounds that would normally distort a 24-bit recording. You have so much editing leeway that the recording level dials on this unit are just disabled because you don't need to set them. Similarly, you can boost a quiet recording in 32-bit float without boosting the noise floor as well. Although I think a lot of that depends on how well treated your recording environment is. If your environment is noisy, you're still going to boost all the environmental noise as well. For my work, I shoot cooking videos in the studio, and some equipment can suddenly get really loud, things like mixers and food processors. I usually have my hands full taking B-roll from the side, and audio is going into the main camera, which is over there, so I often can't adjust the audio levels on the fly, and the result is some blown out audio sometimes that I just have to kind of deal with later. Using a separate audio recorder with 32-bit float would have solved this problem years ago, but when I'm setting up and operating by myself, streamlining my workflow is important. A separate audio recorder I've used, and it's just one more thing that can go wrong, or I could simply forget to turn it on before the action starts. It happens. So the GH7's 32-bit float audio should give me the ability to better manipulate the audio in post-production without having distorted sound when loud equipment suddenly comes into the mix. And I think this can be beneficial in many other situations when you just can't control the audio situation that you're recording in. External SSD recording is available on a number of Panasonic's newer cameras. You can plug in an external SSD into the USB-C port and record to it directly instead of going to memory cards inside the camera. SSDs have a few benefits like being much cheaper per gigabyte than memory cards, and you can attach up to a 2 terabyte drive for huge amounts of recording capacity. It also means that after the shoot, you can take that SSD and connect it to your computer and start to edit right away, rather than first having to transfer your media files off a memory card to an SSD. While SSD recording is not usually in my workflow, I have used it on my other cameras, and it can come in handy at times. Okay, these next two are admittedly pretty niche, but one of the limitations of the GH5 is that you can't output an HDMI signal when you're recording in 6K open gate mode. You're stuck to using the viewfinder or the built-in LCD screen. But because I really need a bigger monitor to accurately judge focus, it means that I can't really use the GH5 for open gate recording, which is pretty disappointing since it's a pretty killer feature to have on this older camera. Okay, on to the last reason. Focus ring control with native lenses. And I know this is niche, it's probably such a minor thing for most people, but the focus by wire manual control on the GH5 drives me nuts. When I shoot B-roll, I'm often shooting handheld telephoto close-ups and focus manually. I've used cine and vintage lenses, which are easier to focus manually, but the problem I run into is shaky footage after hand-holding the camera for more than a few minutes. I'm just not steady enough for telephoto close-ups without good image stabilization or a gimbal. And shooting non-stabilized lenses usually gave me lots of shaky footage. So now I prefer to shoot with image stabilized lenses and take advantage of Panasonic's wonderful dual stabilization that combines both the lens and the body stabilization to get some super smooth results. But this means focusing these focus-by-wire lenses. On newer Lumix cameras, you can set the focus ring to act in a linear or non-linear manner that accounts for rotation speed. I like linear because this allows me to easily fine-tune the focus on B-roll close-ups. With the older GH5, there's no such option and it's always stuck on non-linear. So I find myself constantly missing focus on shots. I'll turn the focus ring just a little and get no response, so I'll turn it a little more and suddenly the focus goes way off from where I wanted it. The GH7 should be much better to focus in this regard and allow me to really finesse that focus. So that's it. Those are the 8 reasons that make the GH7 a worthwhile upgrade from the GH5 for my work. After I use the GH7 on some projects, I'll post a follow-up video on how things worked out. Did these upgrades live up to my expectations? If you'd like to catch that video, please consider subscribing. I'd really appreciate it as I build my channel. Thanks for watching.